I should just inform the House that no fewer than 99 backbenchers are seeking to catch my eye today. That is to say, without regard to how many might seek to contribute tomorrow. There will have to be a tough time limit on backbenchers, and the severity of that time limit will depend upon the level of consideration shown by frontbenchers. So there is, of course, no pressure. The Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, Secretary David Davis.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read a second time. And given your admonishment just now, I will, and indeed the state of my voice, I will give the House warning now. I won't take very many interventions. I'll take some, but not my normal 24. This bill responds directly to the Supreme Court judgment of the 24th of January and seeks to honour the commitment the government gave to respect the outcome of the referendum held on the 23rd of June last year. It's not a bill about whether the UK should leave the European Union or indeed how it should do so. It is simply about Parliament empowering the government to implement a decision already made, a point of no return already passed. We asked the people of the UK if they wanted to leave the European Union. They decided they did. So at the core of this bill lies a very simple question. Do we trust the people or not? The democratic mandate is clear. The electorate voted for a government to give them a referendum. Parliament then voted to hold the referendum. The people voted in that referendum, and we are now honouring the result of that referendum, as we said we would. Not at the moment. So this is the most straightforward possible bill necessary to enact the referendum result and respect the Supreme Court's judgment. Indeed, the House of Commons has already overwhelmingly passed a motion to support the triggering of Article 50 by the 31st of March. We will respect the will of the people and implement their decision by the 31st of March. Subsection of Clause 1 simply confers on the Prime Minister the power to notify, under Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union, the United Kingdom's intention to withdraw from the European Union. Subsection 2 of Clause 1 is included to make it clear that the power to trigger Article 50 may be conferred on the Prime Minister regardless of any restrictions in other legislation, including in particular the European Communities Act 1972. Together, these clear and succinct powers will allow the Prime Minister to begin the process of withdrawal from the European Union, respecting the decision of the Supreme Court. And this is just the beginning of a process to ensure the decision made by the people at last June is honoured.
Will you give way?
I'll give way briefly. Yes.
I'm very grateful. Given that this is the result of the referendum, that triggering Article 50 is an inevitable consequence of the result of the referendum, would you agree with me that whilst it might be honourable for those people who voted against having a referendum in the first place to vote against triggering Article 50, that would be entirely consistent? It would be entirely unacceptable for those MPs who voted to put this matter to a referendum then to try and renege on the result of that referendum.
My honourable friend makes his point in his own inimitable way. As he knows, I always take the view that people's votes in this House are a matter for their own honour and their own beliefs. Forgive me for the moment. I'll make a little bit of progress and then I'll give way to the honourable gentleman. I'd like to draw honourable members' attention to the explanatory notes of the bill, which set out the application of the bill to Euratom. The bill also gives the Prime Minister the power to start the process to leave Euratom.
Will the Secretary give way?
In a moment, in a second. Right. The bill also makes clear that in invoking Article 50, we will also be leaving Euratom, the agency established by treaty to ensure cooperation on nuclear matters, as well as leaving the European Union. This is because, although Euratom was established in a treaty separate to EU agreements and treaties, it uses the same institutions as the European Union, including the Court of Justice. That's why the 2008 EU Amendment Act makes clear that in UK law, membership of the European Union includes Euratom. And that's why Article 50 applies to both the European Union and Euratom. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman and I'll come back.
I thank the Secretary for giving way. I received an email yesterday from Professor John Wheater, the head of physics at Oxford University, who had the very dubious pleasure of being my tutor for 4 years in the mid-90s. He is concerned about the implications on his fusion research programme if we leave Euratom. Is there any way we could postpone leaving Euratom by a year or two? And if that's not possible, what assurance could the Secretary of State give to Professor Wheater and his colleagues?
Well, the first thing I'd say to the honourable gentleman is that there is a 2-year timetable anyway, so we're already 2 years out from that. But the Prime Minister's also said very, very clearly in her industrial strategy and in her speech on Brexit that we intend to support the scientific community and build as much support for that as we can, and we will negotiate, when we engage in negotiations after March, with the European Union, with the aim of creating a mechanism which will allow the research to go on. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I don't have to keep saying it because it's very tedious. I know the Secretary of State is a most attentive Minister, but can I please appeal to him at the start not to keep turning round, looking at people behind him? It's incredibly frustrating for the House. I know the natural temptation. Sorry? I'm sure that was a very valid point, but it suffered from the disadvantage that I couldn't hear it. And the Secretary of State.
That question, illustration, the consequence of this bill go much further than the Secretary of State is telling us. Yeah. I mean, isn't the reason that the government finds itself in a position of such abasement to the President Trump is that they have decided to abandon the high ground of the single marketplace without so much as a negotiating word being spoken. That's why they're desperate to deal with anybody on any terms at any time. Right. Why did the Secretary lead this country into a position of such weakness?
Well, it's almost exactly the opposite of the case. I mean, since he picked up on Euratom, let me make the point in rather more elaborate detail. Euratom passes through to its constituent countries the regulations, rules and supervision that it inherits, as it were, from the International Atomic Energy Authority, of which we are still a member. And when we come to negotiate with the European Union over this matter, if it's not possible to come to a conclusion with some sort of relationship with Euratom, then we will no doubt be able to do one with the International Atomic Energy Authority, possibly the most respectable international body in the world. So, not for the moment. So I'm afraid he's wrong on that. Later.
On the Euratom point,
no. Our aims are clear. We will maintain the closest possible nuclear cooperation with the European Union. That relationship will take could take a number of different forms, and will be, of course, subject to negotiation, which will start after we have notified.
Would the Minister give way?
I'll give way.
Brexit affords huge opportunities for international trade for global Britain. Part of that global trade is with the single European market. Whilst there may be access to the full market, a hybrid access, could the Secretary of State confirm that anything that introduces new taxes, tariffs or duties on British goods is not in our national economic interest?
The answer to that is yes. I'll give way to John there.
Thank the Secretary very much for giving way. Can I just urge him and the government to keep an open mind on Euratom? There is a danger that there will be years of uncertainty which could put at risk the 21,000 new jobs which are slated to come as part of the Moorside development, as well as many others across the UK.
I take the honourable gentleman made his point very well, and I take it absolutely. No, not for the moment. He's right. There are a lot of jobs involved. Also our standing in the scientific community, also our international reputation, individual projects like JET and ITER, all of those we seek to preserve. We will have the most open mind possible. The difficulty that we face, of course, is that the Euratom Treaty is decided by unanimity, so we have to essentially win over the entire group. We will set out to do that, and we will do it with the same aims as he described. So absolutely yes, I give him my word on that matter. No more, no, not for the moment. Now, the Prime Minister set out a bold and ambitious vision for the UK, outlining our key negotiating objectives as we move to establish a comprehensive new partnership with the European Union. This will be a partnership that's in the best interest of the whole of the United Kingdom, and we will continue to work with the involved administration to make sure that the voice of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland continue to be heard throughout the negotiation process. And I will come back to this in more detail later, so I'll take interventions on that point a little later, if I may. I made a statement to this House on the 17th of January about the negotiations ahead of us, and I do not propose to repeat it, save to say that our aim is to take this opportunity for the United Kingdom to emerge from this period of change stronger, fairer, more united and more outward-looking than ever before. I also set out our 12 objectives for those negotiations. They are to deliver certainty and clarity where we can, to take control of our own laws, to protect and strengthen the Union, to maintain the common travel area with the Republic of Ireland, to control immigration, to protect the rights of EU nationals in the UK and UK nationals in the European Union, to protect workers' rights, to allow free trade with European markets, to forge new trade deals with other countries, to boost science and innovation, to protect and enhance cooperation over crime, terrorism and security, and to make our exit smooth and orderly. In due course, the government will be publishing our plan for exit in a white paper in this House and the other place. And the normal noisy shouts from the Shadow Foreign Secretary of when, and I'll say to exactly what I said at the statement last week, as soon as reasonably possible. Very, very hard to do it any faster than that. Now, on the 17th of January, the Prime Minister also made it clear that this House and the other place will have a vote on the deal that the government negotiates with the EU before it comes into force. Ahead of that, Parliament will have a key role in scrutinising and shaping the decisions made through debate in both houses, plus the work of select committees, including the select committee of the Brexit Select Committee, whose chairman is actually in the chamber today. Not for the moment. Government ministers will continue to provide regular updates to Parliament. Further, since our proposal is to shift the entire acquis communautaire, the body of EU law, into UK law at the point this country leaves the EU, it will be for Parliament to determine any changes to our domestic legislation in the national interest. But as the Prime Minister said, to disclose all the details as we negotiate is not in the best interests of this country. Yeah. Indeed, I've said all along, we will lay out as much detail of our strategy as possible, subject to the caveat it does not damage our negotiating position. This approach has been endorsed by this House a number of times. I give way to the honourable gentleman briefly.
I thank my honourable friend, and I thank you for being generous with his time. Would he not agree with me? There's no such thing as hard Brexit or soft Brexit, just Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
Well, he is exactly right. He's exactly right, and I said, I think last week, that I view the terms hard Brexit and soft Brexit, as terms of propaganda. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank him for giving way. Would he agree with me that the people need to be best informed about the impact of our Brexit? And at what point are the government going to publish the analysis they're doing on the impact on jobs of us leaving the single market?
Well, I'd say to him first off, the assertions that people like him made in the run-up to the referendum have all turned out to be universally untrue so far. So I don't think he can be in a position to lecture us on this matter. Now, as I turn now to the reasoned amendment tabled by the member for Moray. As I've already said, this bill simply seeks to deliver the outcome of the referendum, a decision the people of the UK have already made. They will view any attempt to halt its progress dimly. The Supreme Court's judgment last week made clear that foreign affairs are reserved to the UK government. The devolved legislatures do not have a veto on the UK's decision to withdraw from the European Union. But that doesn't mean we haven't paid a great deal of attention to them. We've consistently engaged the devolved administrations through the Joint Ministerial Committee European negotiation and the Joint Ministerial, in a moment, and the Joint Ministerial Committee plenary, the second of which met yesterday in Cardiff and was attended by the First Ministers of all of the devolved administrations. As well as that, there have been bilateral meetings between myself and those devolved administrations independent of those hearings, and 79 official-level meetings to discuss the interests of each of the devolved administrations. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I'm grateful to the Secretary of State for giving way. Will he not accept that the people of Scotland voted to remain within the European Union, as this respect has got to be shown to the Scottish people, to the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament that empowered the Government to act in our interests? Why will he not negotiate and allow Scotland to remain with access to the single market as we demand?
I'll remind him there was another referendum a little while ago, and it was about the people of Scotland deciding to stay within the United Kingdom. And that is what they are doing, and that is what we expect them to intend to continue to do. Now, the Prime Minister has committed to bring forward a white paper setting out the government's plan, and I confirm this will be published in the near future. Guaranteeing citizens' rights in the EU and EU citizens' rights in the UK is one of the objectives set out by the Prime Minister. We have been and remain ready to reach such a deal now, if other countries agree. Finally, there has been continual parliamentary scrutiny of the government on this process. I've made 5 oral statements in the House of Commons, and there will be more than 10 debates, including 4 in government time, and over 30 select committee inquiries. And we will, of course, continue to support Parliament in its scrutiny role as we reach the negotiating stage. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Does the Secretary of State accept that Northern Ireland voted to stay in the European Union? In fact, my own constituency voted 70% on a 70% turnout. Does he accept that we don't have a devolved administration there at the moment? And does he have any plans to recognise the Northern Ireland situation and the damage that's been done already to the Northern Ireland economy, particularly our agricultural economy, in all of this?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that the position of Northern Ireland, the peace process and all the related issues were obviously at the forefront of the Prime Minister's mind when she went there as one of her first visits as Prime Minister, have been at the forefront of my mind, and that's why we have, without any qualification whatsoever, guaranteed that we will retain the CTA, the Common Travel Area. And in terms of continuing representation, although there is no executive, the individual ministers do stay in place, as is normal with governments during election times. And I wrote to the executive a week or so ago asking them to send a representative to each of the Joint Ministerial Committee meetings. They have done so, and they have made serious and significant contribution to those meetings. We are taking very seriously the analysis they provided of industries in Northern Ireland, and very special issues like the single Irish energy market are the sort of issues we've got front and centre in the list of negotiating points to deal with. So he may take it as absolutely read that we take the issue of Northern Ireland and protecting Northern Ireland incredibly seriously. I'll now make some progress. We have been clear that there must be no attempts to remain inside the European Union, no attempts to rejoin it through the back door, and no second referendum. The country voted to leave the European Union, and it's the duty of the government to make sure we do just that. Finally, we remain committed to the timetable the Prime Minister set out to trigger Article 50 by no later than the 31st of March. While we will provide plenty of time for debate and scrutiny of this bill, it is equally vital that honourable and right honourable members move swiftly to adopt this legislation in keeping with the Prime Minister's timetable for triggering Article 50 by the end of March. A timetable that this House voted in favour of in December, and that is providing certainty both at home and in the European Union. I conclude by saying this. The eyes of the nation are on this chamber as we consider this bill. For many years there has been a creeping sense in the country, and not just this country, that politicians say one thing and do another. We voted to give the people the chance to determine our future in a referendum. Now we must honour our side of the agreement, to vote to deliver on the result. So really we are considering that very simple question. Do we trust the people or not? For generations, my party has done so. Now that question is before every member of this House. This bill provides the power for the Prime Minister to begin that process and honour the decision made by the people of the United Kingdom on the 23rd of June last year. I commend it to the House. Trust the people.